Joining us on set this morning, we have a seasoned climatologist in person of Dr. Tita Ekpe. And of course, he is our favorite climatologist, as I would like to call him. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning.
It's been a while.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yes. A lot of things has happened. Ukraine and Russia are fighting. COVID happened. A lot of things has happened. But prior to this Ukraine and Russia fight, which is actually what we'll be dwelling on this morning,
Yes.
we see that 2020, the earth rested.
Yes.
During the COVID break, the earth also took a break.
Yes.
We envisage positive climate change in our society. But today, more like 2 weeks ago, Russia and Ukraine engaged in the face-off, and we know how these nuclear bombs are. Let's understand how dangerous are these chemicals to our environment, apart from the war that's been going on there.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, Perseverance. I'm happy to be here today to speak on this. What is happening in Ukraine is a disastrous, and it's not acceptable. It is bad, and we have had a lot of impacts already, which we have seen, starting from the humans there. We've had a lot of movement, refugees. More than 1.5 million people already have been displaced from their homes. And the impact on the environment is massive, not just within this period, the 9 days or so of this conflict, but before the conflict. We are looking at the military impact of military on the environment. It starts from the drills. Before the conflict came, we had a series of drills right from last year between Russia and Belarus, and lots of missiles were being shot into to the air and then to the ocean, and also to the forest and different lands around there. And this causes high level of noise pollution, and noise pollution is one of the major impacts on humans. It causes anxiety, it causes stress, causes of distress to humans. It also affects the ecosystem, which has to do with the animals and birds that flies over the atmosphere of that environment, and then also leads to animal migration. But animals need to also run for safety. If it lands into the water, the fishes also will need to leave. Some will be caught by these missiles and these bombs, while some that can escape will have to look for a way to escape out of that. Out of that region. And then the actual operation itself, what has been happening, we've seen the aesthetics of Ukraine have been distorted and have been destroyed. What we had, like good roads, beautiful shops, housing, beautiful environments, green areas, and all that, parks, have been replaced by debris, by derelict buildings that looks as if they have been there abandoned for 100 years. But just within some 2 days, 3 days, you see everywhere has turned black. So the impact is massive, and also we have had a lot of machines, military artillery that have been brought into Ukraine. So those movements, a lot of those machines as swamp boogies, they can traverse through any ecosystem. And if you look at Mariupol is a port city in Ukraine, sitting just by the ocean, meaning Mariupol also has lots of swamps and marshes around it. So these machines have traversed through this ecosystem, destroying. The ecosystem have been destroyed, have been damaged. But you see the Russian machines coming in, about 100 or more moving in at once. And you cannot have just 2, 3 moving. You have a swamp of machines moving. So the whole of the ecosystem have been damaged and destroyed. And also the machines have been shut down by the Ukrainians, or the Russians have already destroyed. Some of the artilleries, most of them, their energy is diesel. And whenever they are being destroyed, the tanks are being damaged, there's leakage of oil, leakage of hydraulic into the environment. And also, this movement also, you see when you watch, you see the smoke being emitted from these machines as they move. So imagine 40 of these moving at the same time. What happens to the atmosphere? Soot, a lot of smoke that have been, and other particulate matter, carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide have been emitted into the atmosphere and forming soot, a kind of a cloudy kind of atmosphere. Now, this cloudy atmosphere also reacts. If you look at the Ukrainians as they are moving, you see what they are putting on. It means the atmosphere, the weather there is actually cold. It's actually a cold period, meaning there's high level of moisture in the atmosphere, which is now reacting with this emitted carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. And as this is happening, it's now turning it to a compound, a kind of a compound chemical in the soot, what we call soot in the atmosphere. And when you inhale this, it damages the lungs and other parts of the body. And so this is very, very, and what is happening is not just going to affect Ukraine, it's also moving to the bordering countries around the Eastern Europe. Because if you can put a boundary over the land to show this is where our boundary ends, and then you can easily stop maybe the oil from flowing on land to this other country, but you cannot stop the atmosphere from moving. You can also stop the water bodies from moving. So whatever happened in Ukraine has the capacity of affecting Poland, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, and other countries around there.
Okay, Doctor, we see from your analysis there a lot of environmental impacts there as a result of the Russia-Ukraine. Now, let's look at the climate, because you are also a climatologist.
Yes.
We see that climate change depends solely on the greenery,
Yes.
to take back life, to normalcy.
Yes.
And we're seeing this action of war destroying the greenery, destroying the, this is what we call forceful deforestation.
Yes.
Now, let's look at its impact on the climate. It may not be now, but in the nearest future.
Yes.
Say 5 to 10 years.
Yes. No, when we look at, as I said earlier, where I come here, climate, when we look at the climate, looking at 30 years and atmospheric condition. But that 30 years starts from whatever happens a day per day cumulative. So the impact of what has just happened is happening in Ukraine. It's going to be felt in the next 15, 20, 30 years. The high level of emission of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere over that region, which has altered the environmental setting. You also look at the refugees that have moved from Ukraine to Poland to Hungary to Slovakia and all that. Camps have to be created for these persons, and most of these camps are going to be forested areas, or the bushes are going to be cleared and then camps being created. So that means green areas are going to be lost. Also in Ukraine right now, because of heavy movements of these machines are moving, bulk of them have a serious impact on the green areas. The environment, the trees have been pulled down, have been destroyed. Also, these heavy artilleries also that hits down to the forest is also leading to a lot of loss of biodiversity around the green areas, the trees, and then the herbs and the shrubs. So this is all going to upset the normal setting of that environment, which is going to have impact on the climate in the long run. Nobody's talking about the environment now. Everybody, what we're looking at is survival. How can the people survive? How can we accept these refugees? How can we take care of the medicals, evacuation? That's what everybody's just after now. But we know that after now, the impact on the environment is going to be massive. The cleanup processes and all that will be set in place to recover the environment back. It's easy to destroy the environment.
That was what I was thinking.
It's easy to destroy. Recovering
back.
it back takes 10 years, 20 years to recover back to the normal status. Because a tree that has taken 15 years to grow, you pull it down, and before that tree comes back. So that is going to be a serious issue, and we pray the issue does not escalate to other nearby countries. So the impact will be massive.
Okay. We have seen these displaced persons run to neighboring countries.
Yes.
What can these neighboring countries do that have not yet been affected directly by Russia
Yes.
for the war events and all of that? What can these neighboring countries do to ensure that while they are taking care of these displaced persons, they are
Yes.
also managing the
The-
climate?
the climate, yeah. What they can do is to avoid setting up camps in the green areas, cutting down the trees or the forest to set up these camps. Like what we saw happened in Poland. They tried using, even Ukraine itself, they tried using basketball courts and shopping sporting complexes to hold up these people. We are having about 920,000 people move into your country. They cannot be facility ready made to receive this influx. And this 920 is an estimated, because you're talking about parents with their children and then their pets. Some are going there with their pets. So how we allow pets to also stay in in closed environment? So the environment definitely will have to be created to receive this person. So what those countries can do is to see how they can manage the space that they have to avoid it destroying the environments, just to accommodate these persons. Then the impact will also come massively come on them on the long run.
Okay, Doctor, let's look at some nations are still faced with the challenge of the Second World War.
Yes.
And now, just some days into this war, Ukraine-Russia, we heard that the Russian president had placed his nuclear on red alert.
Alert, yes.
Let's look at what are we looking at globally now? What are we looking at globally? If that promise, if that threat should be fulfilled, what would the entire world stand in terms of environmental impact, in terms of human impact, and all of that?
We'll be looking at a massive impact on everyone, starting from Europe. If you look at on Thursday, there was this fear when the Russians moved into the biggest nuclear plants in Europe, there in Ukraine, and captured that facility with lots of shelling and all that. There was fear that there is radiation. Not until the director of International Atomic Agency had to come out to say, no, there is no radiation. None of the reactors are active, so they are still very functional. They are okay. There is no radiation that has taken place. This is because nuclear power plants and nuclear contaminants are very injurious to health. They are called radioactive contaminants and highly powered by uranium. And when these contaminants are being released into the atmosphere, you don't even need much time to give up. Because it has to do with just breathe it and you are gone. It's that's what we call it chemical weapon. You don't need armies coming in, just shoot it down. And once it has exploded, as the wind carries it, that is how, as people breathing, they are gone. As people breathing, they are gone. That's what was used in Syria. Remember, the Syrian Assad was accosted for using chemical weapons in a particular city in Syria around 2015, where children were also seen to have been affected. So it destroys the lungs, it destroys the white blood cells, destroys, it causes anemia, leukemia, and even pregnant women, the child can become deformed, can give birth to a child that is faceless, that is limbless, like I know a child that does not have eyes and all that, and it destroys the DNA of the system, and then leads to death, destroys the brain cells, you know, allow the brain to grow, and it's highly destructive, and the war should not get to that, because it will destroy, it will reset the whole world again. There was an accident that happened in Chernobyl. Chernobyl is still in Ukraine, and that area is still yet to recover from the impact, because this can land on the surface. That the nuclear, whatever is being released can land on the surface. It can also seep into water bodies, can be on the soil. It can also be on the soil, even and last thousands of years. So generations upon generation will still continue to suffer from it. It doesn't have, there's no cure. It leads to cancer. There's no solution. The solution is to see how you can manage by removing some of the contaminants from the system. So, and we are going to be having massive persons being affected at the same time. So it's going to be highly destructive if that should happen. But we pray we don't get to that level. And that's why the world is trying to be careful. NATO is trying to be careful. US is trying to be careful not to confront Russia. So we cannot impose a no-fly zone. We cannot also escalate these days, try to manage, because Russia owns the highest amount of nuclear warheads in the whole world, followed by US.
There was something you mentioned that is in Russia right now, soot,
Yes.
emanating from some of those explosives and
Yes.
all of that. Now we find ourselves close to a state here that is known for soot, and that is Port Harcourt.
Yes.
Now Cross River is barely 3 hours away from Port Harcourt. Do we stand to be affected from the soot emanating from that area?
Yes, based on the concentration. When we're talking about the impact, look at the concentration. The wind continues moving, and as the wind moves, it carries these pollutants. So the more it takes it, it breaks. It also breaks it down. But the level of concentration in Port Harcourt, if it is so high, can be, the neighboring states can be affected, depending on the wind direction. Also.
But what can we do, because the soot is being generated in Port Harcourt?
Yes.
How can we keep
I think
safe?
what we need to do. There's a young man who even chatted me up from the UK. He wants to study the suits that's ongoing in Port Harcourt. What we can also do is to look at the concentration. That's very important, to look at the concentration. It's the concentration level that will now tell the likely impact along the nearby states. If the people in that city cannot even survive, or is leading to so much disease, sicknesses, we have a lot of lungs related disease, bronchitis, and the rest. So if the people that are suffering so much because of high concentration, then the neighboring states will be put on red alerts. And what can be used, use mask and other form of mask to help manage that. We see that in China, we see it in India, where high level of production, industrial activities takes place, and we use NACs to control.
Okay, let's look at this. Let me quickly take you back to Russia, Ukraine.
Yes.
How would the war there impact negatively on other parts of the world, especially here in Africa?
Africa is still a little bit far off from that region. But what we are having is we have impacts on humans. And we don't also have a lot of economic relationship between Russia and Africa. That's why because Africa is a bit relaxed. Aside the impact on the persons, our students, Ukraine has good institutions for medical studies, and they have so much of Nigerians, like Nigerians and Africans, a lot of Africans there. A lot of them are going to miss out on finishing their schools on time. But a lot of, a student was interviewed yesterday, he said he's in the final year, he's having 6 years in the final year, and he didn't know what has happened. What has happened to him? Is it that his school has ended, his life has ended, or what he has spent has ended? So a lot of anxiety. Right now, what everyone was just shouting for, clamoring for, is evacuation. After the evacuation has been done, we now come back to see how am I starting life all over again? So that is serious impact, emotional impact and anxiety. A lot of families are going to be going through and traumatized. There's a lot of families were already traumatized by their children being in that country onto this thing.
Okay, I'm sure there was a word just used. Let me bring that word back, and that's recovery.
Yes.
Let's look at all of this. How can we recover the environment? How can we recover this and let it go back to the way it was?
The war will have to end first. When the war ends, you have to do a lot of cleanups. The streets will have to be cleaned up. Buildings that have been weakened have to be broken down and taken off. And then we have to start building up the roads. If the roads have been damaged, destroy the bridges, have to be built again. Green areas have to be, grasses have to be planted. There's a massive urban renewal. Cities like Kharkiv have been destroyed, Mariupol have been destroyed, Odessa is already serious on that, Kherson have been destroyed, Kyiv. A lot of explosion already taking place. So all those buildings, infrastructure have been destroyed, damaged, have to first be constructed. Environment now renewed again. and then trees planted. Also look at the marshes and the swamps that have been impacted by oil and seepage, other form of contaminants, all that will have to also be cleaned up. Look at what happened in Ogoni. We're still struggling with Ogoni cleanup today. So recovering back the water that have been polluted will also take a lot of time. A lot of cleanups, chemical reaction cleanup have to take place, introducing microbes that can eat up those the contaminants and then recover the environment back. And then a lot of tree planting will have to be done to see how we can recover that. It will take quite a number of years for that to be done with the support from United Nations and other countries. It will take a number of years, but it will be done.
Now that's for Russia. How about also for Nigeria? Does the same thing too applies? In as much as we are not undergoing any threat right now from any neighboring country, in order to preserve our environment, like the adage goes, prevention is better than cure.
Yes.
So what can we do so we don't start talking about recovery?
Oil spillage already is still happening in Nigeria. So, and the problem has not been solved. The people there do not have water to drink, no fresh water. And the people there also do not have farmlands to farm. The people there also, their fishes have been affected by the oil and have been released into these water bodies. They don't even have their fishing nets, economic life being destroyed and damaged. So it's for us to control first that aspect of our economic activity, that is oil drilling, and by these multinational companies to ensure that the process that has been put in place avoids spillage at all costs. And whenever there is spillage, there should be penalties on them. And then also gas flaring should also be stopped. Today we are seeing the world looking for the world. Europe enjoys Russian gas, so we can convert our gas and then see how we can make a lot of monies. Now nations do not flare gas again; they rather convert it, cooking gas and the rest. So it's for the government to also see how we can manage these processes, that the environment is not contaminated, and we need cleanup, like what is happening in Ogoni right now.
Dr. Etita Ekpe, seasoned climatologist, we really appreciate this conversation.
Thank you.
Of course, we'll definitely have you back again.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, stay with us. Good Morning Cross River continues. We're not done.